email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
This ain't no half-baked TV channel. It's Food Network. This is the place where real flavor lives.
You are the Beyonce of Food Network.
We got knockout dishes, culinary competition.
You win, you're in.
And epic rivalries with the world's best chefs. Grab your forks, knives, and stretchy pans, because we're serving up the best bites on TV. It's the sizzle, the taste, and the flavor. There's nothing else like it.
This is Rogers TV.
Feeling lost?
Oh my God.
Discovery has what you've been searching for.
I found something.
Conquer the high seas with deadliest catch and harpoon hunters.
I'm doing this for the last 500 years.
Investigate the clues with Expedition X.
There are things out there that we don't understand.
Go off trail and off grid with Homestead Rescue. Or treasure hunt with Gold Rush.
It's not for the faint of heart.
And get back to nature with Naked and Afraid. The Discovery Channel, now in free preview.
Bless you.
October 5th, 2014, my daughter was hit by a train. She was walking along the sides of the tracks, and it shattered her world.
You're watching Rogers TV. The following program was provided by a valued member of our local community. Rogers TV is proud to support local producers and share local voices, ideas, and opinions. For more information, please visit our website. The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another week of the Nbpoli Pod. My name is Brett Harris. I'm here with Joanna Killen.
Hello, everybody.
We are here on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, the Wolastoq, and the Pescatawamati, and it is our third budget. This is our budget podcast. And yeah, it's crazy to think we've covered 3 different budgets across 2 different governments in this little podunk little podcast that we started.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that it's been 2 years now that we've been doing this, which is wild. We started in March, basically, of 2023, and have been at it ever since. Yes, with that budget. That was one of our first episodes.
Yeah, it was like our 3rd episode in, I think, was we covered that budget. And then we covered the 24 budget, 2 under Higgs, 1 under Holt. We're going to try to break it down for you. We're not going to try and chat about it. We're going to try to weigh in on it. We're going to talk about it from the perspective of 2 lower middle class individuals who are, well, you're on mat leave working for CERB. And as a person who's, I no political lensing to this. This is just going to be, for me today, my analysis is going to be through the lens of a father with multiple children who swings a hammer and is working on affordable housing projects. Basically, I'm going to give what I have to you folks, our listeners. This is all I've got. I can only give you what I have. I can't give you what I don't. Oftentimes we'll try to I'll try to analyze things from different perspectives or talk about different perspectives and engage with it that way. But today I'm going to try to keep it strictly between my area of knowledge. I don't know, but how are you looking at this today? What's your lens going to be on this?
Well, I was going to say, it'll be really hard for you to separate and make things non-political, I think. Ultimately, everything's political. And so I, view this through the lens of, yes, as a citizen for sure, but also as somebody who looks and thinks about this stuff quite a lot, and wants to see if the promises and things that were, put on the ballot basically are going to be coming to fruition. I did see Premier Holt say that she believes this is a transformative budget, and we've talked and used that word quite a lot. So, is it truly that? Is it something that we're going to see a big change in our society as this rolls out? Or is it going to be something that's akin to the years of yore, which we have always accused the Liberals of doing? So,
Yep.
how can we not put it through our political lens?
Well, yeah, I mean, but we're really in a nonpartisan position now.
Yeah.
Quite authentically. Prior, we've always had this like hangover green sort of analysis and engagement because we were so actively involved with the Green Party. You ran for the Greens, I ran for the Greens, I ran their policy working group, and now we're really on the other side of that, where we're just trying to take some time off from partisan politics and trying to get outside of that bubble and kind of suffering a horrendous loss based on what we've talked about on the pod before. So it will be an interesting budget chat for everybody today, I think, because in the past, we've always been really driving knives into the Conservatives' approach, which was easy to do. And, will we be driving knives into the Liberal approach? I've certainly accused those two parties of being two wings on the same bird, left wing, right wing. But you need both wings to fly that bird. My discussion, I guess, last week with the Gary Stevenson stuff is that the bird just ain't flying for us anymore. The bird has landed and dropped all of the people making less than $100,000 a year as families off in the dump somewhere. It took back off with the ultra rich and the millionaire class, it seems. But we'll try to at least keep it between, like we said, the areas that we're aware. We do want to start with a couple of little things. So it's maple syrup season, and soon it will be Fiddlehead season. So this is Fiddlehead. This is a dirty hat. Sorry, I got to clean these hats, and I stained it with blue. Anyway, don't mind my rough and tumble hat here. And I'm wearing it out as I'm working around the fire and tending the maple syrup and stuff like that. But Fiddlehead season will be here soon. This is the first day of spring. So let's, keep it pure New Brunswick fashion. Get excited for what our seasonality brings us. And I wanted to start with a little bit of a recap from an online discussion that occurred this week.
Yeah,
which
with a good kickoff to this budget chat.
Yeah, I think so too. So Mark McCalman, we've talked about him on here. Woke Elsie's Ghost on Twitter. Definitely have a colored past of engagement between he and I and others. But we had some back and forths around the election. We made some bets. I won the bet, and so now we are, and we went for a beer to talk about it all. We had quite an interesting chat. So we are gonna talk about that little discussion. So I'm going to bring it up for you guys on Rogers TV so you can see what I'm talking about. So if you don't follow us on Twitter, if you don't follow us on Elon Musk's platform, I don't blame you. A lot of people have left Elon Musk's platform. I know you have, Joanna. But it is where I still find people who have more authentic viewpoints of a conservative lean. So here we go. Let's just see if I can share this. And then, Joe, you'll have a chance. Some of this you maybe haven't heard yet, but you'll have a chance to weigh in as well.
No, I don't even go on to the Twitter.
Yeah. Okay, so we start with this. Assist our banner. No, I'm not going to do that. Stop. Get that. Okay. So why is this stupid thing? Of course, they want me to. Sorry, guys. There we go. We can reduce the average. This was our little banner put out on Twitter, and I just sort of put this in the thing. We can reduce the average household's cost of living by $500 per month without raising taxes? Question mark. Think we're full of bullshit? Well, give this week's pod a listen. While we're at it, we talk about Mark Carney, looming federal election, and wealth inequality. That's where it started. And I don't know whether Mark actually listened to the pods. That would have been a good question to ask him. He's kind of quoting Ezra Klein here, saying, the government's role isn't to subsidize the populace. That's backwards. Instead, it should focus on increasing productivity and controlling inflation. Government's job is to tax the economy to, 1, provide essential services markets don't handle well, like police, fire, healthcare, military, sanitation, education. You didn't say housing, Mark. You didn't say housing. You should have said housing. Anyway. And 2, support those who genuinely can't provide for themselves. If 90% of people need a handout, something has gone seriously wrong. I would agree. Your complaint seems to tie it to inflation, which clear causes reckless money supply, expansion, deficit spending, think monetary theory, which I'm quite a fan of. We've talked about modern monetary theory on here before. It's certainly, I think, a more coherent central banking sort of rationale. But anyway, getting into the nitty gritty. Greatly expanded immigration, declining per capita productivity. Fix those and you fix the problem. Government simply isn't efficient. Many of the tasks assumed. We need to focus on removing perverse incentives and getting government out of the way of people creating real value. Ezra gets it. So again, housing. We did get out of the way of housing. We deregulated. We got out of the way. We divested our involvement. We sold off all our properties, and we're in a crisis. The market doesn't do everything right. And I think we can add a number of different things to this puzzle. Retirement, taking care of aging people. I know you call that healthcare, but we've also got for-profit retirement facilities that have gotten us as a society into worlds of problems. We've talked about with low pay wages, with race to the bottom around wages and things like that. Anyway, so I'll shoot back here. I don't want to go on too far. That may be all true. However, speak about governments as if they are all bad at the same time isn't authentic. Some governments do a fantastic job at housing, while others, like ours, drop the ball. Besides, this is about collecting taxes owed, which is what we talked about on last week's pod.
Yeah.
And providing a refund. Continuing on, the working class whose purchasing power has collapsed in the past 30 years. Debt serves the rich. The stock market is not a marker of economic health. And what you call a handout, I would call risk mitigation and ensuring the working class doesn't revolt under this oppression. Mark says, I agree that all things are big problems. I just disagree about the proper role of government fixing it. Best approach would be to avoid the problem in the first place by avoiding the mistakes mentioned above. Do you agree with me that those were the main drivers of the inflation that we've seen over the past 5 years? I just talked about Gary. I said, look, there's no way we can say any of this is a 5-year problem. A lot of this has been going on. A lot of people now are pointing to 2008. So we're almost 20 years into that. Of course, 2008 was cooked up in a finance bros laboratory in 2002. So I don't know. He talks about wealth inequality being different than inflation. Increasingly wealthy are subject to inflation, but they don't feel it. Inflation is very important in the economy, and it's measured as recorded carefully. We pretty much know exact extent timing of inflation. So anyway, we go back and forth. I'll encourage you guys to get on here and look at it. He does zero in here on the difference between him and I. I'm approaching this issue through the lens of oppression, while Mark's approaching it through the lens of interests and incentives. I notice inflation everywhere, but I notice that most when I have in the past visited the U.S. Food, hotels, pints of craft beer are all very expensive there. This is because relative value of Canadian dollars diminish. So Mark really does bring, I think, a more and we go on for a long time. I won't read through it all. But Mark really does, I think, embody some of that. I'll stop sharing that screen now. That difference of opinion, that more traditional conservative viewpoint around, hey, this is just about incentives and how we incentivize and get the government out of the way things will fix them. Most things will fix themselves if the government gets out of the way and people bring real value.
Yeah, so
Go
that
ahead.
you taking that lens though, and the lens you described, I think that's perfect to kind of talk through this budget. You know, how do the Conservatives feel? I saw Tammy Scott Wallace sounding off about how all the years of Conservative balanced budgets are just thrown out the window now. She had a big post on Facebook about that, feeling like, you know, here's a new $3 billion deficit budget. So is that money going to, like to Mark's point, incentivize growth, incentivize change? Or is it, you know, is it going to solve the left's problem of, you know, looking at it through a lens of oppression? Is it helping solve societal issues? Is it helping folks level up from beyond where they're at currently through
Yeah.
these inflationary stages and pressures that are outside of our control?
Yeah. You know, I do think that's the question. Like we talked a little bit about Mark Carney last week. The ballot box question, I think all the pundits are missing for the federal election, but also it's just everybody's question. Doesn't matter who's running, municipal, provincial, federal. Yes, everybody has different lanes to fill, but if you're not talking about the problem people have, how can we expect to have governments be able to fix those problems? And no, government can't fix all problems, but if right now, if in our shoes, just through our lens, we can't solve our problems. We only see price gouging by groceries, wealth escaping the middle class and being hoarded by the ultra rich, people not being held accountable, government subsidizing industries that are private and not necessarily being clear on what value that's providing to residents and people. Like those are the things that we see. So it's like, well, government's not on our side. So it's like, no, I would never say we need to be human beings that walk around looking for the government to fix all of our problems. I'm out there working my, and as are many others,
Yeah.
trying to solve my own problems. But I could go on a long tangent about what's in the way of being able to do the things that are obvious value add pieces to my community, problem solving for my neighbors as well as myself, that I just can't do because of people in power that don't get it and who seem to be talking about something different. So we're 15 minutes in. We haven't talked about the budget. We got to get to the budget. So let's first look at the highlight. What's the government saying about its own budget? And let's see if we can't chew through some of that jargon. So let's get a little presentation going. And they're calling this budget. Did they have a name for it? No, they didn't have it. The last budget was stronger than ever.
Oh yeah.
Was Blaine Higgs's last one. So we can see this budget highlight right on the government's website. I am looking. I don't seem to see the actual like spreadsheet budget, which I'm normally looking for. We'll try to dig that out maybe in a future pod. But here they are. We're prioritizing healthcare. The government is prioritizing healthcare and investing nearly $293 million more than last year in the healthcare system. So if you remember,
it was banner year.
Last year was what? The biggest healthcare budget in New Brunswick history.
Which we also chewed apart, I remember, because it was the way they spoke about it was a bizarre kind of framing of it. The way, because it was actually higher 14 years prior. So it really wasn't the biggest. Anyway.
Yeah, and the other part to it was if you looked at the amount that they spent in 2023 versus what they budgeted, there was only like a small amount of difference between what they budgeted for in 24 versus what they actually spent in 23. So
right,
they're adding on top of $1.3 billion which I believe was last year's budget.
So now it's
Um,
1.5. Yeah.
2.6. I'm looking for the actual number here, but I had that budget up. Yeah, building budget 2024-25 stronger than ever. Let's keep building. Blaine Higgs. So yeah, they rid off the top. Allocates $3.8 billion to the healthcare system, and if I remember correctly, this was like their actual spending the year before was like 3.6 something billion or 3.7. So Sean, you can go back, we can look at that. It was a $13 billion expense budget, spending increase of 6.4%. So the net to GDP ratio was touted as one of their main accomplishments. So that was 2024. Now we're looking here at 2025. We got healthcare, we got aging New Brunswickers, youth and education, housing, economic fiscal conditions, and responding to tariffs. So they put $112 million away to respond to tariffs. So we know this is going to, you said what? This was going to add $1 billion over 2-3 years?
$3 billion deficit, it said.
Over 4 years?
No, this budget cycle. I'm sorry, I can't look anything up on my.
Yeah. I know, and I'm looking through here too, just through all of my different. We do want to make sure we check in with some third-party folks. So I do have KPMG up here and their highlights of the budget. So this budget anticipates a deficit of $399 million for 2024-2025. Projects a deficit of $549 million, or $600 million after a contingency for 25-26, and a $447 million deficit for 26-27.
Right.
Budget.
Okay. So over.
So once we add it all up, I think it's it's not. We're not adding $3 billion to the deficit this year.
No, it's over a few years. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. So they got a new budget, the new stuff for Opportunity New Brunswick. But like the KPMG stuff is pretty neutral, not a lot on it. During 2024, again, they had a few things up, but they didn't really go and weigh in on how they see it, how they don't see it. So, I look at this and I think, okay, the government's investing an additional $36 million in the NB Housing Corp. It just, when we look at this, I'm sort of in a place where I'm like, what's the transformative thing?
Right.
So I'll stop sharing so we can just kind of talk about this. Like, so Susan Holtz called it a transformative budget, spending a lot of money. What's the change? I did see that they're canceling the travel nurse contract.
Yes, that was announced. They're going to have to put that into legislation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not really, they're not spending. I guess they're not spending that money, but how are those healthcare? Is that extra healthcare money that they're putting in? Like, how is that going to work out? When are the collaborative care centers opening? Where are the sort of promises, I guess?
Yeah. So the budget's sort of a commitment of spending money. We've been hearing a few things touted out from different folks, but nothing transformative so far. Really, it's just seems to be about re-greasing the gears that were grinding to a halt, right? Like Blaine Higgs's conservatives balancing the budget and producing surpluses were causing some serious gears to go ungreased and to grind down and become broken. Based on, and that's not my opinion alone, like there were a number of different red flags delivered by folks like Kelly Lamrock or the not the parliamentary budget officer, but the auditor general over the years, and the healthcare CEO, you name it. So those were the reality. yeah, I guess I'm still looking. I'm waiting for the shoe to drop around what's going to change.
Yeah, it's kind of it feels again that they aren't really saying a whole lot. Like when you look at the NB housing stuff specifically, um, there's, what is $36 million for one piece. Like that's not a lot of money when you look at all the areas in need in the province. And
That's their
I know,
yeah, that's their additional spending.
yeah, that's what it's on top of what they're already doing.
Yeah.
But and I get it. They probably are slowly releasing plans. I see a lot of announcements lately from NB Housing. There's a lot of
hmm
road tripping around the province happening to different sites to see what's going on.
hmm
Um, yeah, it's like a startup budget, right? It's like here's what it looks like. Here's the runway we currently have and believe in. The commenters online are saying things to your point about, we were dealing with a broken system. Now, of course, we're going to have to go into debt to basically like restart it up again. It's like, it's early days. It's the early stages of a new structure system, one that was starved previously.
hmm
So is the startup budget enough though? Or is it going to be,
Yeah.
one of these
Well,
things where it's starved out all around spread out too far, spread
well,
too thin?
the thing that's missing from this is revenue.
Hmm.
How are we adding new revenue to this? Right? Like this feels like all we're doing is adding without any sort of revenue generation attempts. So these aren't
What would
spending.
something look like
These aren't.
that? Like, what do you mean?
Well, they're not spending. They're like liberals are often accused of being tax and spend. They want to tax more. They want to spend more.
Yeah.
Well, there's no tax. There's no corporate interest rate. There's no corporate tax rate increase. There's no change around industrial taxation. There's no change in subsidization levels. There's no changes in or even revenue generation by decreasing wages. Like there doesn't seem to be any appetite to rein in bureaucratic wages or rein in NB Power's wages, or there's no ambition here to generate income to do the work that is, like you say, a startup budget. Like let's restart, let's shut the system down for a second, which is what they did for 6 months, you'd say, when they first became in office. Did all the round trips, got themselves ready for a budget, announced a few things out of the gate, and tried to figure out where the hell they needed to grease the gears so they would operate and function again, or repair. But in that analogy, all we're doing is we're borrowing, we're basically taking out debt,
Right.
to grease these gears. We're not trying to change the game and change the expectations around who pays.
So in this analogy, it's the people paying, really. Like if it's going to continue like this and the budget's going to be inflated, it's going to come back to the taxpayer. They're not making any efforts to.
It's you and I.
Yeah.
It's you and I in 10 years that are going to be paying this debt. And then it's my boy and your boy and our kids paying it in 20 years when they're in the workforce. This isn't transformative. I just don't I don't understand how we can be in a world where we continue to see so much wealth go to the top and there be so little ambition from our government to go after it.
Yeah.
Like we talked on the last podcast about the billions and billions the IRS leaves on the table. We don't even have a view on that here.
No.
We're so cowardly. The government's so cowardly. It doesn't matter who it is, conservative or liberal, to even broach the topic of billionaires' wealth. Like the Irving family is the fourth richest family together. I know they're separate entities in many ways, but together as a family, they're the fourth richest, followed by the fifth richest, which is we got two billionaire families, the McCains and the Irvings, that are the top 10 in the country.
Yeah.
in the poorest province.
Yeah.
The worst income ratios, the worst outcomes on education, some of the worst. Like, does anybody not like? Do they just think it's not real? Do they just think it's not real? Like, that's what I mean. Like, so through my lens, okay, maybe we'll get a family doctor. Okay, well,
Yeah.
we actually did get a family doctor this year, and it's my first family doctor in 4 years. So maybe some more people get a family doctor because of this. The Conservatives committed to midwifery expansion last year. Who the hell knows where that's at now? You know, all it's going to do, it's not a big deal. All it would do would allow, women who are trying to deliver their babies to not go to the hospital so much,
Yeah.
tie up the full healthcare system and the full hospital system. But anyway, what do we know? So some of these pieces of the puzzle that could change how healthcare is delivered, we
Yeah.
don't know. We don't know about. It's not there.
Wait to see.
Yeah, but I just don't get it.
No, the revenue piece is missing. I didn't even really think about that. And just the opportunity for it is so ripe right now. But now with these tariffs, you're going to see so much softening of the language around, poor industry. Like they're going through it. They're going to have to adjust, like all this stuff that we've been typically prone to hearing in our province, which is, feel bad for the Lords. And because of these tariffs. So now there's just going to be even more rhetoric that supports this idea that we need to be easier on industry, not tougher, which is unfortunate because, this is a lot of people, in a lot of people's estimation, this whole situation that Trump's creating is an effort to move wealth from even more wealth from one group to another, right? Like the pandemic demonstrated how much wealth was moved from one group of folks to the ruling class, if you will,
Yeah.
and that this is kind of another effort to do that in this latest round.
Yeah, like yeah. And what pisses me off even more is that we don't even have a coherent voice for this in this province. Like,
No,
I don't see it coming from David Kuhn.
right.
I don't see it coming from anywhere in the NDP, People's Alliance. Like, nobody's done the work as political leaders with political staff. And I know that the Greens just got 40% of it cut. Like we talked about that and all that. But like,
Yeah.
has nobody stopped to do some research in their roles as government officials who have access to the resources to do that research? I'd have to file for freedom of information stuff in order to get some of the information that elected officials can just get because they email, a person who's in charge of the information, right?
Yeah.
It's different. So I just can't get it. Like I'm just here baffled because when you're up against it and that people like us are doing worse every year.
Yeah.
There's nothing in this budget that says my life's going to improve this year. There's nothing in this budget that says my 2 affordable housing projects that I'm underwater on, even though I can deliver these projects for half of what for-profit developers can.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll prove that. Like I don't just say it. I put money on it. Like I have my own money and my own nonprofit's money on this bet. That we can do it for about $110,000 a door when the market's doing $250.
Yeah.
And so I don't see anything here that's gonna help those. I don't see anything in here that's gonna help our cost of living go down. So our rent's not gonna drop. Our grocery bill's not gonna drop. Maybe the carbon tax taking off gasoline's gonna help our gas bill, but we're paying mostly electricity for our plug-in hybrid.
Yeah.
I don't see how's an entrepreneur going to benefit from this. Somebody starting a business.
I don't think it's almost like just preserving what we have is the lens that they're seeing it through, that we're not trying to encourage anything new to blossom in this environment. This is a toxic environment currently. So we're not investing in that sector, if you will. But I think we had an exchange with our local entrepreneurship organization in growth committee yesterday.
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
you?
that's right. Yeah, I was in a growth committee for the city of St. John, talking to our regional economic development agency, Envision. They seem to be trying to grapple with this, and what they say to me now is that everybody does realize that we need to focus on, developing our own entrepreneurs here and our own businesses to have access to different markets. And the regional economic development agency is going to take on this side of it, and ONB is going to take on that side of it. They're talking about ONB basically having like a procurement officers who can help anybody in any industry anywhere in New Brunswick who has to buy stuff through the States find a different place to buy it. Hey, that's a good thing. But it's funny because I went into that meeting after having done an interview with Global News on the tariffs and how it's impacting small business. And it felt to me like, were they listening to me? Like, I did it like 4 days before I did this growth committee session. So it was like, is everybody talking this way now? That's good. But what struck me was that from our little neck of the woods here in St. John, Andrew, our CEO of Envision, he is talking about not just mitigating the losses, but resetting our economic activity.
Mm-hmm.
So not just bailing water out of the boat that's sinking, trying to build some new boats. But where do you get the capital to do it? Like, this is where it's like wartime effort, right?
Yeah.
This is a Herculean endeavor that we have to try to do here to get off of the United States as our main supplier, exporter, main dance partner, and try to build that with New Zealand, Australia, Japan, South Korea, Europe. Like, those are the partners now. I don't know about Africa. I don't know what we're doing there, but it's a huge market. But I don't know what our relationships are there. So we have DP World right here in St. John, huge one still doubling down, saying they want to get to 1 million shipping containers from where we're at now, which is like 228,000. And we've got the new cranes to do it. We've got the new land to do it. They've got the new rail expansion to do it. And DP World is from Dubai.
Yep.
Dubai Ports. That's who DP World is. So we have a relationship with a pretty substantial Middle Eastern player. So that was good to hear. But like, in this budget, we're going to need a lot of money to do things like mining critical mineral or refining critical minerals in New Brunswick from the Ring of Fire in Ontario, right? If they want to get critical minerals from central Canada, where there's a lot of them in central Ontario, to markets in Europe and the Middle East, which are desperate, which they need for advanced manufacturing, St. John becomes a really good play to do it because we're a deep water port. You can load up your boat full here. You don't have to bring it half loaded through the Gulf of St. Lawrence. There's a good rail infrastructure connection. You can rail it all here, and refining it makes more sense. Like, rail the raw materials or partially refined materials here. That'd be a huge opportunity for us if we could get it. So they're talking about it, but you need $1 billion just to even sneeze on that conversation.
Yeah. That's why like the 150 million for that's mentioned in the budget feels like it will just be for battening down the hatches of what's existing. I highly doubt that that's going to be available to people starting new entities.
That to me, unless somebody can tell me differently, the $155 million mitigation fund for tariffs looks like a bailout package for Irving and McCain's.
Right. Stuff they can't sell. Losses they can't, quote unquote, handle, right? Because none of that's been defined as what it is. And that's the loose understanding of the budget as we have it right now. I'm sure it's for programs, right? Like, that's likely what it's going to be labeled as, taken care of. So We'll see what they decide that they want to spend it on specifically, but ultimately, I think a number like that, when we're dealing with a situation that, like you said, feels like a wartime effort, it's not. I don't think we want to. I wouldn't start a business right now. Would you?
No, and I know but if we are gonna, but we need new industries, right? So Canada East, people used to keep moaning about that, and I said it before, like, who wants to build Canada East? If we should have it, it's gonna have to be the taxpayer.
Yeah.
Corporations ain't coming to save us, guys. They
No.
don't care. Their wealth is growing without us and
Yeah. Oh,
on
yeah.
our backs. So it's like, who the hell is gonna go after them? Is it like, I just don't get it. Like, the fear is, oh well, if we do anything different, they'll all go to the States. They're gonna go to the States anyway.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they go to the States? And so to me, it just becomes like, what are we gonna do? Rely on their patriotism for them to
I
stay?
know that's what I mean. It doesn't feel sustainable or healthy.
It's not. So it just, yeah. Anyway, I know we're kicking this dead horse, and we started with the budget. The numbers are there to grease these wheels and maybe fix some problems. So I just don't get the details yet. We don't have
Yeah.
any details. I don't see it as transformative unless we are transforming how we make money as a province, because the middle class is tapped out. You can't tax us anymore.
No, and one of the biggest areas of growth that I think even all the economic development agencies should be concentrating on is the business tax, right? But the thing about that, it's when you look at our pie chart, especially for the city of St. John, the tax that's paid by businesses, by industry, pales in comparison to what residents contribute. And so even if you are, say, adding 5 new big players into this space, like, it really isn't going to create that much more tax revenue for your municipality or your province. So it's a lot of effort to put into something that's not going to have a lot of return for you as a municipality or as a province. So that's why, unless you fix that tax side of it, unless you make it more advantageous to attract businesses here, I don't know why we're investing as much as we are into some of this stuff, right? Because the people that are going to get richer as a result of this stuff, like, will be getting the government welfare as well, which is really frustrating.
Yeah, because you look at Nbpoli power subsidies for industry, you look at tax subsidies and property tax relief for industries. They're all there. They're not there for us. They're all there for them in the sake of keeping jobs that will go south the first chance they get. Oh, by the way, they've already done that, right? Irving shut down half its operation here at a wallboard site and launched a 200 employee expansion somewhere in the States. I can't remember where.
Mason, Georgia.
They're already doing it, folks, and the government doesn't seem to care. Talk about it, and I think some of this is actually could be a little bit more nefarious, if I can say that.
Well, a lot of these companies already have, like, completely built entities in the U.S. anyway.
Yeah,
So
of course they do.
Yeah, it's no big deal to, like, shift.
They're already behind the tariff wall. So
yes.
So, I look at this and it's like, is this money from this government, is all it's going to do is keep us just satiated enough that we don't revolt? Like, I just, 1 second, we'll get Beatrix involved in this. All right, back. And we got baby Beatrix in play. And I will try to put some things in front of her, like a cord or a whiteboard marker with a cap on it, and see how she fares. But yeah, I just worry that some of this is like insulating us from feeling like, I've thought about this for a long time with New Brunswick. The equalization stuff insulates us from actually making transformative change. All of it's there to try to make sure that we don't become a dystopian state, but we keep becoming more dystopian. And I hate sounding like a crazy crackpot conspiracy theorist, but I don't know what else to call it. Like, every year things get worse, more expensive, My consumer price index is worse than it's ever been. So I mean, this budget, yeah, it's a deficit spend, but it's like, I don't know. It's just insulating us from feeling the real pain. So now we're going to have a bunch more doctors running around. We'll get a few more houses built. We'll get some funds put away for some bailout packages and some senior homes upgraded. And what?
Yeah. Then what?
So then my life is more expensive next year. If I make the same amount of money this year, which I explain, like wages are not climbing. Nobody's forcing wages to climb. And so then government has to keep trying to insert itself into solving the problems that really come from wealth inequality and wage stagnation. And, so Mark going on about productivity is like, well, these guys won't even invest in productivity measures. Like the billionaire
Well, at this point in the world too, productivity in a nutshell is going to be making sure there's less people working at any place, any given place. Like all of these upgrades and things we're seeing in processes is essentially pushing people out of the workforce, out of the factory into a thing that's even more automated. It's like you see robots delivering food at restaurants, So productivity for a corporation is meant to make them more profitable, not to empower people, in a capitalist structure.
Well, on that note, I'd like to share something because I do have a clip that I think we can share this week to talk about productivity measures. Now, is there anything in this budget that mentions productivity? Well, yes, there is. There's youth and education, which talks about productivity and stuff like that. There's this idea on economic and fiscal conditions, which are talking about trying to get real GDP growth up through productivity measures. But let's talk about the experience around productivity. There's a tale of two stories here. Why are we always and complaining, like Mark is, about productivity in Canada? Why are we so unproductive? Who has the ability to tool the middle class to be more productive? It's not the middle class themselves, and it isn't government. It's industry. But we've had such a lazy deal, and we've been so complacent, and the wealthy can continue to make money off of low productivity that there's no interest in doing so. For those of you on Rogers, you'll be able to see this clip. For those of you not on Rogers, you'll have to just listen in. This is Professor, just one second, let me bring him up. Professor Daniel Markowitz, and he is with, if I can read this, he's just talking about the meritocracy trap. And all of this around late stage capitalism, productivity, certain stuff like that.
Today, you got to break this one down for me because I mean, this is like so fundamental to the American dream. The fact that you can roll up your sleeves, get to work hard, and rise through the ranks. What's wrong with that?
So that's much, much harder to do now than it used to be. And one of the reasons is that the middle has been stripped out of the labor market. Look, we've all heard statistics like that a CEO used to make about 20 times what a production worker makes. Now it's 300 times. But it's not just CEOs. A doctor used to make 4 times what a nurse makes. Now it's 8 times. A partner at a law firm used to make about 5 times what a legal secretary makes. Now it's 40 times. A bank president used to make about 50 times what a bank teller makes. Now it's 1,000 times. And what's happened is that the good middle-class, mid-skilled jobs that used to dominate work have been destroyed and replaced with a lot of gloomy jobs at the bottom and a few super elite, glossy jobs at the top. And if we want to fix inequality, what we really have to do is fix that. We have to fix work.
Daniel, thanks for joining us today.
So this is one piece to it, right? Like the idea that that the way we work and the difference between these two is growing. But that's not the only one that I wanted to share. That video, I can't seem to find it. I'll see if I can find it again. But it was somebody who's sharing sort of a similar perspective as Professor Merck was there, but mostly around the idea of what did we do with automation? Like, is
Yeah.
automation, like you're talking about, we're looking at a $1.1 billion investment in this Irving pulp mill down here, which is a generational investment, and it will create lots of jobs for 5 years. And at the other end of it, there'll be fewer jobs than there were before, because the difference in how North America has done productivity is that we've enabled the productivity enhancements we've achieved through technology, automation, artificial intelligence, algorithms. Beatrix is listening in. We've taken that and given it as a priority to make already wealthy people more productive and therefore more wealthy. What did they do in Germany? Highly industrialized. What have they done in other places? They've taken that automation, they've taken those technological advancements and put it in the hands of their workers. So now, a manufacturing worker in Germany is 3 to 4 times as productive as a manufacturing worker in Canada. And that's because, companies like Volkswagen, which, they've got a checkered past with what's happened recently, but there's many other companies. They understand that their long-term success hinges on their strategic advantages that they have. We just don't seem to care about strategic advantages. We just want to vacuum up however many dollar bills we can from a moment, from an industry, and then leave it a hollow shell at the other end and just say, oh, well, we tried, all the companies now south. It's like Alberta, right? They gave these oil companies all this free land and all this refinement capacity or extraction capacity. And then what happened 3 years ago? We were on the hook for $1.5 billion to go clean up their wells.
That in their contracts to take the land was their responsibility. But what do you do when something's bankrupt and gone?
And we've
but
left
these
those
are the kind of
loopholes.
deals we can't be making with industry, right? Like that there has to be this protected piece for the public. That just can't happen. There has to be, some sort of mitigation of that risk. And we talk about some of the government programs that are very kind of low hanging fruit, where there's one where you can get money to renovate your home if you're low income. However, in order to actually access those funds, you have to have that money upfront to pay the contractor to do the work, and then you'll be reimbursed by the province for this, this benefit. But meanwhile, over in the oil field deals, you're giving out free land and allowing them to destroy it and walk away with no protection for the taxpayer in that situation. Yet you're making sure a single mom who needs to rehabilitate her home has to be the bank for the government in order to do that. So it's just this very backward way of thinking about how we deal with people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's you got your hand on a good point there. I like that, because that came right out of the lived experience that we just went through, right? Where I got somebody, I've got no money on these affordable housing projects, so I'm tied up for 3 weeks already, about 2-3 weeks now, and I've had a lot of computer work to catch up on, and some packages that need to be assembled for our financing potentials and all that. So it's not like I wasn't doing any work, but I had some time. Somebody said, hey, look, I'm desperate. I need these repairs done to my house. We've got a $10,000 loan secured through NB Housing. And I said, well, I don't have like a full-fledged construction company anymore, and I don't have the same capacities I used to do. So I can't float the project without payment up front. Like, I will need at least half of the job as a retainer, so I can go secure materials, so I can secure getting my tools there and getting set up there and all that. Pretty standard, right? To have a retainer or a deposit on a job. Well, they can't do it. But to your point, but they can allow all these loopholes to exist. And New Brunswick's one of the worst for private corporation loopholes. That's been brought up in the past by the Auditor General.
Yes.
We are like what's the state that's super has all these companies in it? Because
Louisiana.
No, it's not Louisiana. It's the we've talked about it on this pod before.
Rhode Island.
It's like New Maryland or something like that. Like it's one of these small little states where the business rules are so permissive that
That's
everybody has. Yeah, it's Rhode Island. Thank you.
Yeah.
So everybody has a company there, even though they operate in any other state because of how permissive the tax policy is and reporting and who you need as directors. New Brunswick's like that too. But it's like, it's so baffling that we have this double standard where the massive risks, like industrial, like flight of private corporations.
Let's take
like,
AIM as a local example.
Yep. These massive risks on the public that have massive benefits for being on our public land and using our publicly built infrastructure, using our publicly managed waterways, using our publicly funded healthcare for workers so they don't have to pay health insurance, blah, 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 to the same extent in the States. All these advantages. We're just willing to hand over to corporations to create 20, 50 jobs, 80 jobs, 300 jobs, whatever it is. Then they leave. And we say, oh, well, sorry you left. We'll clean up your mess. Like, it's, anyway. I got mad last week, and I feel like this budget is just like nothing in it. There's nothing in it that gets at what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I know, it's true. It's a lot of that social side, but it's not actually finding any way to make this sustainable and long term. Like, because then it'll just be, guess what? 3 years, everyone will be super mad because taxes will have to be increased, and then the Conservatives will be back in, and then the ping pong game continues, and you heard it here first.
Oh my God.
Because they're not going to actually go find ways to maintain this transformational change, right? Like, if they're not willing to
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, it's just we'll never get to Norway's sovereign wealth fund. Like, Norway has a population of like 6 million people. It has a sovereign wealth fund of $1.1 trillion that they've built over 20 years of charging billion-dollar oil companies to do offshore oil extraction royalties. It's all come from companies. None of it has come from their citizens. All come from companies. It's $1.1 trillion for 6 million people, so they can just continue to diversify their economy, so they can be invested elsewhere, so they can attract investment, set up little businesses here and there. And, China has People's Investment Fund. There's all kinds of sovereign wealth. Now the States wants to do one. Except us.
Yeah.
And we're the only ones trying to play the neoliberal game, it seems, of deregulate the government, get it out of the way, let these corporate billionaires solve our problems because that's what they're good at. And I just keep seeing it. And it's like more and more, I'm just going to sound like a broken record, but I can't look at this budget and say anything that we need to have improve in our lives financially so that we can have margin to begin acquiring wealth again, like property, like reducing debt, like investing in even, in this house to make it more efficient so we're not paying $1,000 heat bill again. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that we could do to improve our lot in life that my parents did.
Yep. And it's around having that extra amount of money to invest in that type of future. But you can't do that when everything is a paycheck to paycheck and you're constantly worrying about, have you set aside enough every single month? So like we said last week, like what could $500 do to your household or to your person?
And I did mess up those numbers last week just because I was running fast calculator numbers, but it is true. Yeah. Like, if we just root out the families, because what I was doing was adding up people instead of households.
Yeah.
So there's not 40 million households in Canada. There's like 15 million households in Canada. Yeah. There's like 40 million people, and then out of those, there's at least the top 10% don't need our help, so you take that down anyway. But the numbers still check out, right? We can just give $500 of a reduction, tax break, whatever you want to call it, food stamps.
Yeah,
to the middle
food
class.
Stamps would be the best ones. Yeah.
Yeah,
some sort of food purchasing.
Like, just give it to the middle class. Don't even raise taxes and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then, all right. Well, that's it for the budget this week, folks. Beatrix is hopping around, happy. Usually we get her on her morning nap for this time, but she wanted
40-minute nap queen.
She wanted to be part of the conversation today. And so we hope you enjoyed the pod. Keep chatting with us. Thanks, Mark, for the interesting dialogue back and forth. We went on a lot longer. It's going to live there forever as long as the platform's still there for you guys to check out if you care. We'll continue to talk about the budget as more gets revealed. That's just sort of our quick version of it. And any parting shots or thoughts from you?
I mean, I hope to see the plan part roll out soon, and that this just isn't another Groundhog Day in New Brunswick. I know that was one of our first episodes too, so it's like, please don't make this more of the same, Liberals. That would be nice.
I know, yeah. All right, well, see you next week, folks.
See you next week.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Support your local charities and win great prizes by playing bingo on Rogers TV.
This is Rogers TV.
With clubs, leagues, and courts in every province and territory across Canada, squash is the sport for wall-to-wall fun, fitness, and friendship. From coast to coast to coast. Learn to play and you'll want to do it every day. Squash. Play inside the box.
Support your local charities and win great prizes by playing bingo on Rogers TV.
You're watching Rogers TV. The following program was provided by a valued member of our local community. Rogers TV is proud to support local producers and share local voices, ideas, and opinions. For more information, please visit our website.
Welcome to the Lou and Sue podcast,
where we chat about life, love, and what we've learned.
So grab your cutest mug
and join us.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the Lou and Sue podcast.
This one's going to be a little different. So this one's called Thank You, Next.
So it's looking back and a look
forward.
Look forward.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we just kind of wrote down some questions and we haven't discussed these ahead of time. And just people who are texting us or sending us messages after our episodes come out.
We love the feedback.
Yes. And the pictures of you guys watching it in your house is so cool. Seeing us in your living room. It means the world to us. And this was something that was kind of scary for us to do, but the feedback has been nothing but good. We literally have not had a negative comment.
It's always been wonderful.
And any sort of feedback we get that is for us to like change something has been really good too, and really like positive.
And to be fair, it's been pretty minor.
It has.
We've been
like
pretty
Susan,
good.
Stop touching your hair.
Well, she already knew that.
I did that. I was the one that said that.
But that's okay. That's part of her charm, is she's a little fidgety.
I'm fidgety.
But to look back to our first episode, and the reason why we're doing that in the first place is that, first of all, first episode, you were nervous about bad comments. And we've only had good comments.
Yeah.
But the whole point of this was that we're chatting anyways, and that people could relate. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you guys are relating and that you're enjoying it, this is the point.
It's the whole point. And we also kind of got a marriage proposal, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a TikTok thing.